In this episode, Mercedes Corona and I are going to be discussing a bad therapy example from one of your fellow listeners. My hope here is that you get a clearer idea of what therapy is supposed to look like for you and also what it's not supposed to look like for you. My name is Justin Sinceri. Mercedes and I are licensed marriage and family therapists. Welcome to Stuck Not Broken. This podcast is not therapy, nor is it intended to be a replacement for therapy. It's also not a clinical consultation, and you should not be taking it that way. This is really Mercedes and I just kind of sharing the thoughts that pop into our mind when it comes to this. This is not supposed to be exhaustive. There could absolutely be laws and ethics and norms that we missed that maybe you think of, and feel free to reach out to me at justinlmft@gmail.com. But don't take this as like an exhaustive discussion about these topics. All right, here we go. Welcome, Mercedes, back to Stuck Not Broken. Super happy to have you here.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. I'm so excited.
Best friend of the podcast.
Best friends.
All right, we have an email. This came like months ago. And it's specifically, they requested that you be a part of this. So this person says,
I just have to say, I'm touched. That's awesome. So
okay. Whoever
this is.
Well, I haven't said why they wanted you to be a part of it, though.
But, okay, now you make it like, I'm like, it's got to be a positive thing, right? But maybe it's not. Okay, go ahead.
Make up a name.
Robin,
I like that. That's good. All right, Robin sent this to me through Instagram like months ago. Robin says, I hope if you, and I edited it a little bit, but she says, I hope if you do an episode with this story that you include Mercedes.
That's me.
That's you. I love the humor and heart that she brings to these topics, even though it is clearly so cringy for her to hear these stories.
Oh, the bad therapy story? Yes.
Yeah.
Because I know that there's an actual therapist, an actual person out there who's actually doing these things, and that, okay.
It just shows how much she cares. Okay? So positive. She wants you here for a positive reason. These episodes are a unique...
You tricked me.
These episodes are a unique and satisfying blend of touching and entertaining/funny. I don't think I've come across anywhere else. Please pass this compliment along to her regardless. So there you go. Compliment has been passed.
Thank you. Thank you, person we have named Robin. Thank you so much. I wish I knew your real name. Okay.
I want to preface this by saying we're not here to pick on therapists. I'm not a perfect therapist. I would never claim to say I know everything about therapy.
Same, yeah.
Okay. But, and I would even say there's sessions where I'm like, I wish I could redo that one, or I wish I had taken that technique back. So in no way are we, putting ourselves on a pedestal we don't belong on, if that's the right way. I'm not sure if that's a phrase or whatever, but I put that out there. Hopefully it makes sense. Okay, good.
Maybe the listeners will.
I don't know. We'll find out.
Understand. Okay.
So there are some things that, like, no therapist is perfect. We make mistakes, but some things are egregious. That's kind of the idea here. And some things are like,
absolutely.
No, we really got to clear this up, for our listeners here. Robin says, when I lived in the South, I saw an individual therapist and a couples therapist that were both mediocre, to say the least. Most of the story is about the couples therapist we saw, but the individual therapist did something distinctly off-putting that I want to mention. I was seeing her when I was engaged to my husband and was feeling more suicidal than I ever had in my life. I knew at the time and explained to her that it was an escape fantasy. And I was thinking about it a lot, and I was even thinking about how I do it, even though I was not actually planning or really wanting to do it. She told me that the anxiety and stress I felt was normal and expected for anyone planning a wedding. Wedding planning was stressful, but that was far from the reason I was thinking about killing myself. And I'm not sure how she didn't get that. In a session or two after I told her about my suicidal ideation, she joked about it, saying something like, see, now thinking about that feels pretty silly right now, right? That sound effect was like perfect. That's Mercedes like covering her mouth.
Okay, I'm trying to stay calm and listen to the rest of it.
I got one more paragraph before we'll get your thoughts on it.
All right.
So Robin says in parentheses, she put, except when she said that, so See, now thinking about that feels pretty silly now, right? Except when she said that, she named the specific way I was thinking about doing it. So I guess she had shared some details. I'm leaving I'm leaving that detail out for the sake of your listeners. I appreciate that, Robin. Okay, so one more paragraph, and then we'll take a little break here. I think she says, I think she was maybe saying that to me in response to something positive I had said that day, like trying to show me that I was seeing my life, like trying to show me that I was seeing my life wasn't so bad, it needed to end. Oh, okay. But it felt so inappropriate and minimizing. In general, seeing her didn't seem to be helping much, so instead of confronting her about anything, I just quit seeing her after a while. Years later, I learned that therapists receive training in the difference between passive and active suicidality. So her not taking it remotely seriously has made more sense, but still, she says, but still. So, you covered your mouth, took a little beat back there.
Yeah.
What came to your mind, if you don't mind leading us on?
It's not okay. That is like, what? Like, oh my gosh, like, because she said that the therapist laughed at her, right? And then was kind of like, is that what?
Well, she said that
were those her words?
She joked about it, so it wasn't like laughing
She
at
joked
her
about
like
it.
maniacally, but it was like she joked about it. Yeah.
But joking about suicide to a person who felt suicidal actively and was vulnerable enough to bring that information to you for help and support. Not okay. So much. It's not okay. I think, like, for sure. Okay. Because I'm thinking about it, and like, for sure, like, we have a thing amongst us therapists, like, we joke about things that are probably inappropriate in the general public to joke about, because I don't want to say desensitized, but we're just so like inundated with certain information, certain types of information, that one of the ways we cope.
Yeah, it's like nurses have their own sense of humor, police officers have their own sense of humor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Doctors have their own sense of humor, yeah.
Like, I'm not going to joke about suicide with the client.
No.
Like soon after it sounds like it was a pretty soon after situation.
It sounds like it was like the next week,
huge, yeah. It's right. It's too soon. Like, if the client wants to joke about it, like after the fact, and it feels like an appropriate thing for them to do, to cope with it, to kind of normalize it, whatever, I'll go along with that. But I'm not going to initiate it so soon after. It just feels so disrespectful.
Yeah, definitely.
It feels disrespectful. It feels minimizing. It feels invalidating. Like, what a ridiculous thing for you to think about. Like, suicide, that's so dumb for you to have, like, considered that. It just feels really, really inappropriate.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what my reaction was about.
No, totally. Yeah, so the way that it sounds like Robin interpreted this, and this is my impression of it as well, was like, it's minimizing. It's like, it was more serious than just a wedding plan. It was more serious than just this one. This one like facet of my life. There's more going on, I'm assuming. And I don't know Robin, and we have no idea. We're treating this just as like characters in a story. But yeah, I mean, it did sound minimizing. So it was like joking in a minimizing, dismissing kind of way is how I would take that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you brought up the other point that I thought was odd. That's not the one that I was reacting to, but the idea that to make the jump from wedding planning to that being the cause of the suicide, I hadn't even, that didn't enter my mind while you were explaining, like, reading the story. So it's weird that the therapist made that jump, like, oh, wedding planning is so stressful, and that's why, I don't know, that's a weird thing.
It does feel dismissive, and when people bring up suicide, I tend to take that pretty seriously. Like, I don't freak out exactly, but I definitely don't dismiss it. I definitely want to learn more. I want to know what they're feeling, what they're thinking. Yeah, where are you at as far as planning and intention, and do you have the means to? So there's all these like suicide kind of assessment things that we can do. But I definitely don't want to not take it seriously. If someone's to the point of like there's thoughts in their mind about death, we're already pretty far along on the spectrum of like perfectly well, what my well-being is at 100% to, I'm not alive anymore. Like you're somewhere down that spectrum.
Well, and to feel as the client to feel that this is the solution, meaning
Right.
things feel so awful and so heavy and
Yeah.
so overwhelming right now that I can't see a different way out. This is the end all be all solution to whatever situation is happening in life. That's a big thing. It has to be taken seriously because there's a lot of pain there. There's a lot of emotional pain, hurt, whatever stuff they've got going on that's big.
I never, I don't think any of us should assume that someone's at that point of considering not being alive anymore because of the specific context of their life in that moment, or in that time. Like there's an accumulation of things that get someone to that point, I think.
Yeah.
Not just, I don't think it's just like a wedding
Yeah.
thing.
And obviously we don't have all the information, but it sounds like just from what we do have, it sounds like there could have been more exploration. Because if it is connected to the wedding planning, I don't want to invalidate that either. It just doesn't. I'm assuming there's more to it than that. And so for the therapist not to have explored, and again, we don't have all the information, so maybe I'm assuming here, but to not further explore that, like, hey, what's going on? What do you think brought you here? What, like, just kind of getting into it. I don't know.
Now, so this, Robin had said at the end there, I learned that therapists receive training in the difference between passive and active suicidality, which I guess that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah. I guess
Yeah.
we suppose we do, yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember having it termed that way, but I understand, what she's trying to say there. Yeah.
I've definitely, I think I've probably used those terms when like admin, like principals come to you and say, hey, this, like if a kid mentions suicide or like wanting to harm someone, they tend to like escalate and like freak out, like, oh my God. And so in my mind, I'm like,
Right.
well, slow down, hold up. Like, where are we at on that spectrum of, it's just like an idea to they're planning it, they intend to do it, and there's a means, and it's like it's imminent. So for me, it's like if there's thoughts in their mind, yeah, I guess you could call that. It's not even, I don't even think I would call that passive suicidality because it's not. It's ideation.
To me, it's like, I mean, I think you can call it ideation
right.
if they say, I'm going to kill
Yeah.
it. Like any version of that, I think is ideation. But I think for me, it's like sometimes, especially when working with kids, sometimes it's more an expression of feeling.
yeah.
Like I feel so awful that I want to die. But
Yeah.
there's the difference between expressing an emotion in pretty significant terms, pretty severe terms, or expressing an intent of action. I intend to do this. Those are two different things.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think I've probably told, the staff we work with, like they're not actively suicidal. Like it's not. It's obviously a thought in their brain. It's something that we need to monitor and whatnot. But they're not at a point where they're actively going to act, to act on that, right? So I've probably used those phrases.
Actively act.
Yeah. I think I've used that phrase before, but still, it's like, yeah, we got to treat it seriously. We don't dismiss this stuff.
It's like one of the big ones, Like there's a few really big things that we're trained to kind of like never, like never ignore this, and suicide is one of them.
Yeah, it's not something that you dismiss or put on the back burner. Yeah,
You don't mess around with it.
yeah. Robin goes on to say, the couples therapist my husband and I saw was questionable from the start. We chose her because we wanted a secular therapist, and she was one of the few in our location that did not specify her religion online. On the first day, she talked to us briefly individually. She said it was to ask about physical abuse, which she did, but also she talked to me for a while about my side of things. But I don't think she did that with my husband because they spent much less time together. I've been a part of couples therapy 2 other times, and the other couples therapists didn't do that. I haven't done couples therapy, so I don't really know what the norms are for, like intake and assessment. So I can't really comment on that. Do you have any insight on that?
It's been a minute since I've done couples therapy, but I think it's one of those clinical judgment things first of all. So you kind of have to like feel it out. So for example, like the physical abuse thing, I think that's smart. It's safe and smart to take them separately and check in. Hey, like if a therapist has any indication for that, I think that's a good thing to do. But as a couples therapist, one of the big things you have to focus on or just keep in mind is making sure that both client, because it's two clients, right? It's at least two people. A couple, I guess, is two people. But that each person feels heard and listened to and understood more or less at the same level as the other person. There can't be this feeling of imbalance or unfairness, because then it won't work, because a therapist should be neutral. And when there are two people, the therapist should be neutral to both. So the piece about spending way more time with her than with her partner, that's a little wonky.
I would
That's
expect that if that did happen, that they would at least explain and have like a no secrets clause. Like it's pretty common for couples therapy, right? So
Absolutely. That's definitely one of the things that a person has to have as a couples therapist, is that no secrets thing. Within reason, because there is if there's concerns about abuse or domestic violence.
And that's why they
but
met
other
separately,
than that,
yeah.
And then usually everything happens together, because if you're here for couples counseling, we're going to meet together.
I would think so. Yeah. There's no like major red flags for me as far as this goes. I would hope the therapist is transparent about, hey, I spent more time with this person because this came up or whatever, as long as it was like appropriate to disclose that. So Robin goes on to say, also on the first day, we all went over her contract together. In her contract, she said that we were not to see other therapists at the same time. This was my husband's first therapy experience, but far from my first. That really stood out to me, so I asked about it. She said the reason was something like, so two people weren't telling us different things to do. I still thought it was very weird. She had that in her contract, because what if we wanted to check out a few first sessions with other therapists before committing?
That's not okay.
No.
You're not the boss of what people do. If you're a therapist, like, people come to you, for support and guidance or whatever, but they're free to do that with whoever they want. If they want to meet with 5 therapists at the same time, it might not be helpful, but if that's what they want to do, they can do it.
They could.
To be clear to the listener, I don't suggest doing it, but you're definitely able to kind of shop around and kind of find who feels like the right fit.
Definitely, yeah.
You're allowed to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when I meet with clients for the first time, I tell them, look, I don't assume we're going to meet again. This is a chance for us to feel each other out and see if we're a good fit. Yeah. And I might not be a good fit for you, and that's completely okay. So as part of, it sounds like what this was part of it, like an informed consent. And so an informed consent, that's normal. That's about like finances and insurance and confidentiality.
All the information you need to know.
Policies.
To make an educated decision.
But I've never heard of an informed consent, if that's what this is, involving, hey, you can't talk to other people.
You're not allowed. You're not allowed to have another friend besides me. We're best friends. Doesn't it feel like that? Like,
yeah.
I shouldn't mock. I shouldn't mock, but it just seems silly, because I feel like, for me, if I'm confident in my abilities, and there's always going to be the possibility that a person just doesn't fit with a therapist, always. But if I'm confident in my abilities and I feel pretty certain that I can provide support, I can provide help to the client, do what you got to do, man. Go check out everybody else in the area if you want. And then if I'm the right one, I'm here. And if I'm not, that's okay. Somebody else can help you.
So I would add to that, you mentioned you could have 5 therapists if you want. Now, what I would say to that is, obviously, I don't recommend that whatsoever, like you said.
It's not recommended. No.
But as a therapist, if I hear you're seeing 4 other therapists, I might say, you know what, I don't think that whole situation is helpful in my clinical opinion. I don't recommend this. And I think it's okay for me to step back. And if there's something I'm providing that's unique, that might be okay with like maybe one of the therapists. I wouldn't say, I know you're exaggerating, but just so people don't take that super literally. I think it's okay to have, like, you could totally have one, and it's not that uncommon in the school district where a kid has a therapist that focuses on school behavior and a therapist outside of the school that might focus on other things, or one therapist for family therapy. and one therapist for individual. And I think I'm not an expert on couple stuff, but I don't think it's super uncommon to have a different therapist for individual work versus couples work, right?
Right.
Unless you know it
I
differently.
agree.
Yeah.
Right.
This is not a standard informed consent clause yet.
It's just, I was just going to say, if there is a need for multiple therapists, say I'm working on certain, whatever, this issue with a client and Justin is working on a different issue with a client, best practice would be that we get a release of information to communicate with each other. And that way we can collaborate and say, hey, here's kind of my approach. Here's what I'm doing. Kind of, working together not overlapping, but like just complementing each other without contradicting each other and without doubling up on,
Service,
the same thing. Because then we're both charging for services for the same service, for the same stuff.
Right.
And that's just not fair.
That would be like an unethical thing on our end to accept money for something they're already receiving. I think that would be pretty wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of wiggle room, but having it in a contract I wouldn't say that's normal for therapists whatsoever.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I have a comment to make and I don't know if it's appropriate.
I could take it out if you like.
It's not like inappropriate. It feels like that speaks more to that therapist's ego, or what am I trying to say? Like, it feels like that's the therapist trying to cover themselves in some weird way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it has the best interest of the client. Like, you're not thinking about what the client needs.
Right. It's really about taking care of themselves as the therapist by putting that into the contract.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. Just a brief part here. Robin says, the therapist frequently told her own personal stories that were not particularly useful to my husband or me. It generally seemed too frequent for her responses to our things to be about her. I'd been to enough therapy to know it wasn't supposed to be like that. So just real quick, for me, personal disclosure, it's an iffy area. There's a gray area here. It's not always a bad thing. It can be helpful. I don't do a whole lot of personal disclosure, but it's not out of the norm for therapists to like do a bit of personal disclosure.
Well, and for me, it's like if it gets to the point where the client is noticing, like, this is a little much, it's not okay. Because I completely agree with you. I think there's room for personal disclosure. But for me, it would only ever happen, first, if there's a strong enough rapport. And second, if the personal disclosure in some way serves the client. Not because Mercedes wants to share about her life, but because it does the client some good in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you.
That's the only reason to do it.
Well, actually, let me challenge you on that. I'll add to that. Because I think it could be, and I've done this once. I never, except for once, share my religious beliefs, my political beliefs. Like, that doesn't have a part in therapy. But there was one client where they were deeply religious, and I'm an atheist. And usually that's not an issue. And I was raised Catholic, and I get it. I can use the terminology and the concepts, and I was baptized and had different sacraments and blah, blah, blah. So, but with this one client, I felt like me keeping that back and trying to use their terminology, like I wasn't able to meet them on that level they were needing. And so pretty quick, I said, look, I got to be honest with you. I feel like this is a hindrance on my end. I feel like I'm a hindrance to you if I don't put this out there and say, I don't believe in this stuff, and I have to be totally honest with you about that. It just felt like the right move to me, and they were appreciative of that, and I think it actually kind of helped in a way.
Yeah.
So it wasn't self-serving, but it was more like, I don't know how helpful I can be if I withhold this from you,
Yeah, I agree with what you did there, because like you said, it wasn't self-serving at all. In fact, some could argue it was actually the opposite of self-serving, but I think it's transparency with the client. It's keeping the client's best interest in mind, and understanding that if a person's faith is so essential and critical to them within the treatment process, that, that piece of information, personal information, is necessary to know. I think that's the right thing to do. That's the ethical thing to do, is to share. Look, is is this okay or not? It's important for you to know. I
Yeah.
think that's the right thing to do.
Okay. Yeah, and so that one in particular, they ended up saying, okay, I'll get my spiritual needs met from my pastor, and I'll talk with you about my emotional stuff. And we had a clear differentiation. It's like, okay, I can do that for you, sure. Robin goes on to say, in maybe our second or third session, my husband and I brought up some sexual issues connected to different interests with kink. This is partially why we wanted a secular therapist. We needed someone sex positive and assumed our best bet was with someone who didn't explicitly put Christian on their Psychology Today profile. Let's just say her poker face needed work. Her overall message... I love that. Yeah. I wish I could see that. I wish I could see that.
I know, me too.
Her overall message to us was indeed relevant and helpful. Okay. So was indeed relevant and helpful. More appreciation for the good aspects and less doing things we don't really want to do. The sad thing was I could tell she was trying not to be shaming, but she was so bad at it. I remember a specific... She's trying, though. She's trying.
She's trying.
Yeah, I got to give it to her. I remember a specific thing she said that was trying to be empathizing / validating with some of the kink one of us wanted. And I remember after her initial shock of when we first brought up sex issues, that it looked like she tried to keep her face under control. She was just clearly out of her element.
I feel bad for her now, the therapist.
Yeah.
It sounds like she was trying and like...
She should have just like
I don't know.
packed it up and said, all right, good meeting with you. I don't think I'm the right
We're
therapist
done.
for you. That would probably be the best thing is, look, I don't think I can help you out. I've had, now that I'm working with adults, I've had a couple of adult clients bring up sexual stuff, right? And like, that's not something I specialize in. I've never worked with like sexual issues. I have, and this actually has to do with what's coming up. I have zero training, like specifically in like treating or helping somebody with sexual issues. And so it's like, you know, I tell them flat out, like, I don't think it's something I'd be able to work with you on. If there's some emotional stuff around that, we could talk about that. But something like this, I'd be like, I don't think I'm the right person for you.
I think that would be the best thing to do. I think I do want to kind of give the therapist a little bit of credit because she was really trying. I think I shouldn't laugh, but I think in my in my training, both in school and like gaining experience, like as a baby clinician, as a baby therapist, like gaining experience. One of the big things that I learned and was actively taught is, look, like you need to be okay with all of it. You need to learn to say the words that the clients will say, to go to the place that the clients will go, except for sure there's going to be some of those things, you know, we all have our own personal stuff, you know, be it religion related or whatever, beliefs, whatever kind of thing. If as long as it's not a giant red flag for us, you have to get used to saying all the words, all the things, wrap your mind around that and learn how to be neutral and accepting and listening. And it sounds like this, like I said, I was trying to give her credit because she was trying, but if you can't do it, then don't do it. If you can't absorb information without reacting in a, you know
what?
What's the word I'm looking for?
That's exactly it. You have to use the safety word at that point. The therapist has to use the safety word. They have to say, banana, banana.
Are you taking this out?
I might not. That's pretty...
You threw me off, really, man, and I'm already thrown off because I can't see your face.
Sorry. That actually really works because, I mean, the whole kink thing, safety word, the therapist should be able to say, platypus,
no, I get it.
I'm out.
I get it. I was like trying to make a point. Now I don't even remember what I was saying.
It just popped in my mind. That was perfect.
That's your fault.
Yeah. I'm going to take a break right here. And this is actually a good spot because there's like some tech difficulties. We're going to sound a bit different after the break. But I wanted to tell you about Polyvagal 101. It's a course that I have that really teaches you essentials of the polyvagal theory. I think this is absolutely essential information for my fellow therapists and also therapiers like coaches and whatnot. I think this is like we have to have that information in order to provide, I think, more effective services to our clients and understand better, what's going on. So it's called Polyvagal 101. It's on my website, justinlmft.com. I have a pre-recorded course version, but I also have some upcoming live opportunities to experience it in a different way. So head to the website to find out the next live opportunity, or just to buy the course as it is, and to run through it, each module in its pre-recorded version. Again, it's on justinlmft.com. So let's get back. I got us off track with safety words. Let's get back here.
That's right. You did. I was in the middle of something and I don't even know if I finished.
I know. I'm sorry. We had technical issues. Well, so let me go back a couple sentences. I remember a specific thing she said that was trying to be empathizing / validating with some of the kink one of us wanted. And I remember after her initial shock of when we first brought up sex issues, that it looked like she tried to keep her face under control. She was just clearly out of her element. So we were kind of talking about, if you're not comfortable with it, either be prepared for stuff that's going to come up, or I was recommending just kind of tap out and say, I don't think I can really help you with this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I would say that something like this, I send my assessments out ahead of time to give people a chance to fill them, virtually, just to provide whatever information they want. And that way I can look at it ahead of time and say, I don't know if I'd be a really good fit for what you're looking for.
Yes.
So that would be another good, even before coming in the room and doing all this, to give people a chance.
Then, sorry for interrupting. No. I think then you'd have, as the therapist, then you'd have a little bit of a heads up, like, oh, they want to do this and this and this, as far as like, treatment topics. And this one is something I'm uncomfortable with. And then you can have a transparent conversation with them during the informed consent piece and say, you know what, I don't think this is like, I don't think I can help you with this piece of it. That would just be the right thing to do, the ethical thing to do, because then in the future in treatment, you don't want to be having to control your face unsuccessfully and giving the impression that, it's not okay, something's wrong,
Yeah, and that's totally okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we don't have to know everything as therapists. Like, it's completely okay to say, I don't know if I can help you.
Yeah, and we have to know our limits, because understanding our limits as therapists is just a different way of taking care of the client. Because if I can't help you, someone else can. And I want you to have that help.
Unless it's in a contract that you can't see anybody else.
Oh, well.
And then you're
I'm the
my
only
client.
Therapist you're allowed to see.
All right, Robin goes on to say, the way she communicated about sex with us was so unprofessional. One thing she said was, y'all need more appreciation. And something along the lines of, it's a wonderful thing someone wants to have sex.
Nice.
Sorry, I'm not very mature. It's a wonderful thing someone wants to have sex with you. Enjoy that.
Oh my God.
I don't think she meant that like we were so disgusting. It was amazing we had found someone. But that's why I was laughing. That's kind of how I took it. But rather trying to get us into the mindset of gratitude. That's nice.
Sure.
But
There's
it really
ways of doing it.
Right. So she says it really bypassed the issues and easily could have been taken the wrong way. And like when I read that, that's exactly how I read it. It was like, oh wow, it's kind of insulting.
Yeah.
Yeah. She also instructed us to only have vanilla penetrative sex, and there were some kind of implication that being quote unquote natural would fix things between us, maybe even on a deeper level beyond the sexual differences. That instruction and implication, the right sex would fix things, didn't sit right with me on many levels. I'm not sure we went back after that session. We only saw her a handful of times and never confronted her about anything because it didn't seem like the therapeutic relationship was worth trying to work on. It was just getting more and more dubious. She clearly was not a good fit. I mean, fair enough. Fair enough. Not a good fit.
Agree completely. Yeah.
I wish that could have been identified way earlier on, maybe even in the assessment, this is what we're looking for. And the
Right.
therapist could have said, oh, I'm not the right fit for you, but here's a referral or a resource that you can go to for
Mm-hmm.
people who specialize, or a way to find someone who specializes in that maybe. Uh, so I wish it would have been discovered earlier.
That would have been the best course of action, is having some sort of a, not a screening process, but just like that assessment tool up front, because here, as the client, here's what I want, here's what I'm looking for. And as a therapist, I can either address that or not. Because to specifically say, why don't you stop doing the thing that you're into and just do it this way instead? That's not okay.
I wonder if that's more for the benefit of the client or for the therapist,
Right.
you know,
Right. It honestly, it
the
feels to
natural way.
me, it feel right. The vanilla way. Uh,
No.
Honestly, it feels to me like that is about the comfort of the therapist, not the wellness of the clients.
So this
And that's
would be,
unacceptable.
yeah, this would be, well, so it's, look, therapists, I don't think it's out of the norm for therapists to give advice. That doesn't mean it's always good advice,
Right.
but I don't personally give advice. I make clear to my clients, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. We'll figure that out. We'll come up with
Hmm.
options. We'll weigh pros and cons. So I don't think it's abnormal for a therapist to say, hey, try this out. I think when it comes to something that you're
Right.
not knowledgeable about, like I wouldn't tell a deeply devout Catholic how to pray because I don't do that at all. So for
Hmm.
me to be like, oh, just do it this way, it's like I'm not
Right.
coming from a good enough knowledge base. Well, actually, I actually do have pretty good knowledge of Catholicism. So if it was
That's a
some
bad
other
example.
religion, yeah, some other religion that I didn't know anything about, that probably
Right.
wouldn't be ideal.
I understand where you were trying to go with that.
Okay, all right.
But I think you're right. I think we're I was taught not to give advice. I think giving advice and giving suggestions or ideas,
Mm,
I think those are two different
sure.
things, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, hey, what would you think, suggestions like what would you think about this, or what would happen if you tried this, versus idea, not ideas, excuse me, versus advice of like, do it this way. Those are two different things. And for sure, I think there are times that we do give advice, but we're not strictly supposed to, like, it shouldn't be like, do
Not
it this
really.
way, this is the only way to do it,
Yeah,
it's the way that I see it is more kind of the suggestions, the exploration process, like let's
right.
problem solve together, let's figure it out, what do you think would work. So for this therapist, I think I said this already, but for the therapist to outright say, do this might work, clearly
Right.
that's not okay, because they specifically came in with something different in
Right.
mind. Not okay.
So one thing I want to add here is I don't think you have to explain to the therapist why you're leaving. I think it's could be helpful, feedback can be helpful, but you have no obligation to do that. And so
Yeah.
if it's not working out, it's not working out. That's it.
Yeah, I think that's a hard conversation to have. I think any
It
client
is.
that wants to, you're definitely welcome to. I think a good therapist, and I understand we're talking about bad therapy right now, but a good therapist will be able to hear that feedback and then use it constructively. But it's a difficult thing to do, and Justin's right. You're under no obligation to explain anything. You
Yeah.
are the client, you are the one receiving the service, we are the ones providing the service. If you are dissatisfied
Yeah.
with the service, you can seek the service elsewhere. That's perfectly within your rights.
All right. Last part here. I didn't find out until years later that only sex therapists go through special training for sexual issues.
Mhm.
I can't believe there isn't more of a basic level of training regarding handling sexual issues for all therapists. Sex is a part of life and a place where so many things can go wrong. Surely
Mhm.
lots of people want to talk about it in therapy? Question mark. It seems like too mainstream of a topic to be treated so niche with training. Funny enough, what I learned from this couple's therapy experience inspired me to look for a sex therapist for individual therapy after we moved to a bigger city and a different state. That therapist has changed my life. She was
Good.
also, yeah, she was also the first truly trauma informed therapist that I have ever been to. What a difference that training makes.
That that piece
Happy ending.
astounds me. The trauma informed thing astounds me. Because
Oh, I
it sounds
know.
like this
Yeah.
person, Robin, we're calling her, it sounds like Robin has some experience with therapists. And to feel like
Yeah.
this most recent one she spoke about is the first one that was trauma informed, that feels like a huge problem for me.
Yeah. So that brings up, and she makes a really good point about the whole, sex
The
training.
sexuality thing.
Yeah.
I took a course. Is that not, I took a course
There might
that
have,
was required for my, program, or I don't know if it was the school I went to or what, but I took a course on human sexuality, and it covered the basics and a little bit more. And
yeah,
I don't
that
know, is that
sounds
unusual?
it sounds familiar. I don't know if I took a course that would prepare me to help people with their sexual, what they want to change or whatever. I wouldn't even know. No, I
I
don't feel like I was
mean,
equipped for that.
yeah, but I don't know. I feel like in a basic way I could, like, if I had a client come to me with certain sexual concerns or questions or whatever thing, I feel like I could
Okay.
handle it pretty, adeptly, to a certain extent. Like, there are definitely therapists that specialize in sex therapy. She makes a good point. I don't know if it sounds like I'm arguing or not. She
No,
makes a good
no,
point. I agree with
it's a
her.
great
I'm
point.
surprised that, yeah, I'm surprised
It
that it
is.
feels that way.
Not everyone, you would think it would be like, yeah, maybe a basic level of training for us, maybe. I spent more time on like communication skills, that kind of like relationship kind of stuff, but
Hmm.
not sex in particular, and definitely not kink. Like I don't remember any classes that dealt
Yeah.
with leather and whips and whatnot.
Whips.
Yeah. So actually, I don't even know. Is that kink? I have no idea. I think it involves hammocks and
Hammocks.
chairs hanging from the ceiling.
Swings, Justin.
Swing. Sorry.
Swings. Don't ask me how I know.
She brings up a really good point, but even more so the trauma informed therapist thing. Like this
Yes.
shocks me more than anything because it's so prevalent with absolutely
Yes.
everybody that I've worked with, pretty much, that there is some level of trauma. And so
Yeah,
that seems like something that absolutely all of us should be getting. But trauma
absolutely.
informed is a phrase we use, but that doesn't even have a specific meaning exactly. Like it just doesn't. You know what I mean? Like
You're right.
what we consider trauma informed with polyvagal theory and maybe somatic kind of work. Like to me, that's trauma
Hmm.
informed, understanding attachment and whatnot. I think if you ask somebody else, "Hey, what does trauma informed mean?" I think they would have a much different answer.
That's true.
Yeah. So there's no standard exactly. And so
I will say, for me, I assume for you as well, since we're approximately the same age, it's been a quick minute since I've been in school.
true. Yeah,
So,
true.
like, I wonder what it looks like now. I wonder if things are a little different now, like as far as like the requirements for whatever trauma informed means now. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know either, but I also am not really asking any teachers. I'm curious though. I would love it if you're a psychology teacher out there, email me,
A
Justin
therapy teacher,
LMFT.
though.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And if you're in therapy school, if you're teaching in therapy school, email me, justinlmft@gmail.com. I would love to know, what does trauma informed mean to you? And or are you teaching about, what level of teaching is there around sexual, what do
Human
you call it?
sexuality.
He, but that means that, I think it means something different though.
I don't know. That's just the name of the course that I took in college. Not
Right.
sorry, not in college, in graduate school. And it did cover, the basics, but then there was also, like, I don't specifically remember like kinks, but there was
No.
definitely what did they call it? Like, not vanilla. Like it
Hmm.
covered some topics and kind of
Was
ideas
it,
around
but
not
was it,
vanilla sex.
okay, but was it more about, what do you call it? Like deviance? Was it framed as
That's the
like
word.
deviant?
That's the word I was looking for. Yes, not
Okay.
like
That makes sense.
not like pathological
That's the word. Yeah, thank
stuff.
you. Right.
We have each other's words.
Yeah.
Um, not
Give them back.
like sexual deviance, but not pathology necessarily. I think we did that at some other point.
Okay, that's it. That's the end of her message to me and you.
Okay, it
She
is.
said that because she loves. She said, "I hope you do. I hope you include Mercedes. I love the humor and heart that she brings to these topics,
Ah,
even though it is clearly so cringy for her to hear these stories. It just shows how much she cares."
that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Okay, I do care.
you
I
do. I
don't know if
know.
you're leaving all this in, but I do care and I do cringe because goodness gracious, I think my heart goes out to these clients who go through these stories
Sure.
because I find it so unacceptable and so far beyond what I can even conceptualize in my head
Yeah.
for the therapeutic process. Like I can't believe, I don't want to say I don't believe these are true because I know for a fact they are
Right.
true,
Right.
but if I didn't know they were true, I'd be like, no way. Like there's no way a therapist would ever do that. It boggles my mind.
Where would you rate this story as far as um egregiousness?
Egregiousness on a scale of 1 to 10.
Highly egregious to not egregious. Zero
I feel
to
like we
10.
have
10 is the most egregious.
okay. I feel like we definitely have heard more egregious ones.
Yeah.
This one feels. Oh, I don't. Are you going to include this
Yeah.
in the final
Well,
version? Well, I
it's
don't.
up to you.
I don't want to offend our listener who specifically requested my presence here
Okay.
for being
We'll try.
awesome. Let's
Try.
see. We said okay. So the individual therapist was joking inappropriately. That was pretty bad. That was pretty bad. And then I just like had a visual like image in my mind of the therapist like trying to control her poker face, but really just not
I would
succeeding.
love to see
I'm
that
gonna say I'm gonna say a 6.
for the whole thing.
The whole story, a 6.
I can see that. Yeah, I think I'm right on there with you.
It's pretty egregious. Not the most egregious, but it's pretty unacceptable.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, you're trying to advise and you took on a client that probably you shouldn't have been working with.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, that's pretty darn bad. So
Which one was the one that was talking too much about herself? Was that the couples therapist or was that the individual therapist? The same one who can't keep a poker. See, yeah, see, like the more I think about it, it feels
yeah,
more and more egregious.
yeah.
Thank you, Robin, for your story, your bad therapy story, and for specifically requesting Mercedes Corona.
Thank Mercedes. Thank you for joining me for this bad therapy
Of
episode.
course.
All right, until
Thank you
next
for having
time.
me, Justin.
You're welcome. Until
Okay.
next time. Hey, thank you so much for hanging out with Mercedes and I here and talking about some bad therapy. Again, no one's perfect therapist, but these are things that we need to talk about and clear up things that are well outside the norm. If you want to reach out to me and share your own bad therapy story, I would love to hear it or read it. My email is justinlmft@gmail.com. Again, justinlmft@gmail.com. Otherwise, thank you so much for being a part of this. And one more big thank you to Mercedes Corona for joining me again on this episode. I cannot wait to have you back on. It just feels right when you're here. All right, that's it. Bye. This and other content I create is not therapy, not intended to be therapy or be a replacement for therapy. Nothing in this creates or indicates a therapeutic relationship. Please consult with your therapist or seek for one in your area if you are experiencing mental health symptoms. Nothing should be understood to be specific life advice. It is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Is that your phone going off in the background?
Bye. Yes, I'm sorry. I
Poor
didn't.
form.
Poor
Poor form.
form.
Poor form.